To close out today, it would mean the world to me if Sam's friends all stood for a moment. If anyone who, I know some of you are already standing here at the back, so you have a choice, but maybe come forward. But if Sam's friends who are in front of me would stand for a moment, and if I have to ask a third time, I'm going to come out and start hitting you with a microphone. Okay, anybody who's been Sam's friend, and in fact, if you didn't even like Sam and you're just here for the free coffee and you're young, please stand up. Okay? Something that I feel very strongly is that my role since hearing of Sam's passing is that for this week I needed to stand for Sam. I needed to help his mother. I needed to help you and help our community. Because if Sam knew that you were hurting, he would stand for you. And you all came up here and you all told stories about how Sam stood for you. That was the common theme. Apart from the fact that he had, nipple rings and whatever. But the common theme was, from a little boy up to the day he died, he stood for you. And so my challenge to you, and I know that you've seen it online, one of my oldest friends, Sean, set up, the skeleton of a website, istandforsam.com. And we don't know yet where that's going to go. But my challenge to you is, I work at the Daily Sun, so I get to come to the kind of scared straight grad night stuff. We just show the horrible photos, and they told you about if you go out and you party on grad night, you're going to die. If you drink a beer, you're going to die. If you smoke a joint, you're going to die. And you guys all sit there, you text on your phones, and you make out in the back of the auditorium, and you wonder when Mr. Cullen or Miss Anzuki or Becky will let you go, and so you can just get back on to doing whatever you're going to do anyway. Okay? It's really simple. Okay? You're teenagers. You're young adults. You're going to do all of those things. And no old blowhard with gray hair is going to stand in front of you, even at the most tragic of times, and get you to make a commitment and say, oh, I'm never going to drink again. I'm never going to take grandma's meds. I'm never going to make a dumb decision. Okay? Because you are. And that's natural. Okay? But my expectation to you, you all know me. I'm not a stranger to any of you. My expectation to all of you as you stand surrounded by our community, surrounded by the people that love you, is that you will stand for Sam. And specifically what that means is if you see a friend who's making a shitty decision, you stand for Sam. You make the uncomfortable phone call. You take the keys away. You don't have to make them a Bible-thumping teetotaler. Get them through that night. Get them through that moment. If you have to take the pills and flush them down the toilet and deal with their rage, do it. If you have to make an anonymous phone call to their parents, do it. If that had been done, we wouldn't be here. And that is nobody's fault. Okay? Sam Bacon made a bad choice. Sam Bacon went to the edge. You have known me, many of you, be the Nazi dad. I'm not the dad who you come to my house and I give you a beer. I'm not the dad who you come to my house smelling like weed and I don't absolutely lose my ever-loving shit. Okay? But Sam made a bad choice. And unfortunately for me, in my family, this is a recurring theme. This isn't a one-off tragedy. This isn't something that happened once. My brother died at 31. He was cremated, and on the resurrection day, he is going to have a really hard time with the rapture. Because there's bits of him in Japan, there's bits of him in Australia, there's bits of him in England. And my mother in an English village freaks out about that. She's an old school Catholic. Okay? Miranda's uncle died at an early age. This has already struck both sides of my family twice, and now a third time. So all I will ask you, all I will implore you, and if I reach 1 out of 10 of you, then maybe that's 20 people right here that will make a difference. And the last thing I will say in closing, apart from 1413 North Ring Drive, the last thing I will say in closing is the day of Sam's death. I spent the day going to the medical examiner's office because I knew he hadn't been murdered. I knew what had happened. And so I pulled some strings, made sure there was no autopsy, made sure that he was whole for his mother. I went to the funeral home, to a man I've known for 25 years, and pulled some strings, and made sure that as she was flying down from Colorado, she would be able to see him the first thing the next morning. But then I went home, and while I waited for her to arrive, I wrote. And I forgot about that post. I wrote a post, I poured my heart out. It was cathartic. I got up the next morning, on the Friday morning, and my day was to be the worst day imaginable. What's worse than the cops showing up at your house, telling you your son's dead? What's worse than that? I'll tell you. What's worse is watching his mother grieve over his body in the funeral home. And before I went to do that, when I was steeling myself, I don't know why I checked my email. And there was an email from a guy I don't know. Never met him. Never heard of him. Not a friend, not on Facebook, nothing. Just a random email from a yo. And he said that he had read my post in the afternoon. That night, he came home, and he found his son passed out, comatose, on the concrete floor of their family garage. And it had happened before. His son had been to the edge before. He'd done that before. He'd made that mistake. And he said normally, he'd have sworn at his son who was passed out, couldn't hear. He'd have put his son to bed. And the next morning he'd have yelled at him some, and it would have all happened again. But instead, he took his son to the hospital. And the doctors checked him, did a blood test. His blood alcohol level was 0.30. 0.4 is dead. 0.4 is your organ shut down. That's it. You could sit in the ER and drink to a 0.4, and there's nothing they can do for you. But at 0.3, they were able to bring him back. And so that father, on that night, while my son was still lying in the medical examiner's office, that father stood for Sam, and he was the first. He was the very first. And so there is someone, I don't know who he is, there's someone in this town, in our community, who has a tomorrow because of Sam. Sam has no more tomorrows. It sucks. It sucks monkey nuts. He has no more tomorrows. Okay? And so just as Miranda said, these 10 brothers, 11 brothers, I'm not good at math either. These 11 brothers are living Sam's tomorrows, and they are standing for Sam for Miranda. Okay? But you are all living Sam's tomorrows too. And I swear to God, if I have to come to one of your funerals, if I have to be the one that shows up with my cameras representing our newspaper because you didn't listen, or because one of your friends wasn't able to stand up for Sam for you, I don't know how to cope with that.